Hi, my name is Marcus, and this is a companion podcast for the C.G. Jung Helpdesk meetup group. I host live events on Zoom every 2 weeks about the concepts and ideas of the Swiss psychologist Carl Gustav Jung. Every event, I give a presentation about the Jungian concept, so have fun with this event's topic. And I want to welcome you to a new installment of the investigation of the ideas of Jung and the, by now, more and more obscure ideas of Jung. And this one is about secrets. And Jung had some really nice quotes about secrets, and I will start with those. All personal secrets, therefore, have the effect of sin or guilt, whether or not they are, from the standpoint of popular morality, wrongful secrets. Also another one. This hiding away from friends destroys society. Secrecy is antisocial, destructive, a cancer in our society. These are strong words, and these are strong statements, and Jung does not often do these kind of statements. And I wanted to start with this just to give you already a feeling for this and ask the question, okay, why? Why does Jung have so strong ideas about secrets? Because what we associate with secrets often is privacy. And privacy is a big topic, especially in the internet age, with mobile devices that we always have with us, always within arm's reach, and that basically have all our information, financial, personal, where we are, what we do, what we plan. So Jung is against secrets, and we're gonna find out why. But first, I want to talk about secrets in general and why human beings love secrets. That's the thing. We love secrets, especially when we talk about stories. A lot of stories reveal about the fact that there is a secret. If we take, for example, the show Breaking Bad, which was super successful and also very, very good, it revolves around this change of profession from this normal teacher into basically a drug dealer, drug maker, drug dealer. He's keeping that secret from society, his wife, his brother-in-law, who's a cop. And the show really lives on that, on the secret being hidden. And the tension that is there is to, oh, this time he will be found out. Oh, his wife will find out. His brother-in-law will find out. And they can stretch it out over years, right? And millions of people watch it just to see whether the secret comes out. Or you have other movies, The Truman Show, where you have the main character who's living in a kind of fake reality that's just existing for TV. We as an audience know that it's all fake, also most characters, but the main character does not know. He doesn't know that his world is not real, his life is not real, and everything is a big secret. And the movie is about him exploring and finding out about this secret and pushing against it. And you have movies like Ratatouille, that it's a kids movie where a rat is operating basically a human cook then to cook this amazing cuisines. And of course, you can't have a rat in the kitchen. So that's then again this secret. And what we expect, just storytelling wise, when a secret is introduced, we want to see it resolved. And this is why we keep watching, because we know in the end it will come out into the light. We know this. We would be very dissatisfied, for example, if Breaking Bad would end and they would not find out that Walter White was a drug dealer and drug maker. His wife would not find out. His brother-in-law would not find out. Nobody would find out. He would just die in between and nobody would be wiser, right? Or Truman Show. He just lives his normal life and is in the TV show and then the movie ends, right? It would be very, very unsatisfactory. It's just the premise that we go into when we have these stories. And this is what Jung dealt with. We had patients, and these patients, of course, they had secrets of different sorts. And his question was really, okay, how do human beings deal with secrets? How does something become a secret? How does something stay a secret? And how can secrets then come out? And his idea is really that secrets come from like two sources. And one is from consciousness, and one is from the, let's say, collective unconscious. What does consciousness mean? Consciousness is the things that we know and that we are aware of. So there are some things that we see, and we just want to keep them secret. We don't want to deal with them. This is a lot what Freud dealt with his idea that you have, for example, these urges, the way you are, and this comes into your consciousness, but you have in the background all the rules of society and your upbringing and your parents, and they're saying, no, this is not good to have, and into the unconscious you go, and that can ruminate and cause troubles. So we can see something, we can experience something and say, okay, we don't want to talk about it. We want to keep it for ourselves. But what Jung says, it is not really gone. It is still in ourselves. It's repressed. This is a technical term for that. This is selecting what I like, what I don't like. And I keep what I like. This I keep in my consciousness. Everything that is positive and everything that is negative, I repress it into my unconscious. And this concept of the unconscious is not so old. It's fairly new, maybe 150 years, not much longer. And it started with Freud with this description of this is a place where the unwanted things go, the secrets, the traumas, the things that bother us. And this layer of the unconscious, what Freud calls the unconscious, Jung calls the personal unconscious. He sees really different layers in the psyche, with the top one being consciousness. This is what we see, what we can do, what we know, right? This is us interacting in the world and being aware of certain things. And the personal unconscious, he says, this is like a big graveyard of buried, unwanted experiences and secrets. And for him, the personal unconscious is like an unfortunate accident. So these are the things that we should deal with, something that should be integrated, knowledge about another situation, or like a secret that somebody else could have, or a secret that, or knowledge that we don't want to realize about ourselves, like things we have done that could say, oh, you're not such a good person as you might think you are. And this is all stored in the personal unconscious, but it doesn't stay really there. It ruminates there. Jung sees this concept of shadow, of this dark part of the psyche, really situated there. He says it can gather there, and everything can gather so much that it becomes personified through this shadowy figure in your dreams or in your experiences that causes these extreme reactions, because it's consisting of all the things you are actively repressing and pushing down and not wanting them to be let out. And I have a quote for that. Repression has the apparent advantage of clearing the conscious mind of worry and the spirit of all its troubles. But to counter that, it causes an indirect suffering from something unreal, namely a neurosis. Neurotic suffering is an unconscious fraud, and it has no moral merit, as has real suffering. So, but the idea that Jung wants to get at, just because you're not dealing with it, does not mean that it's really gone. It is still there. It's ruminating. It's in the background. It's like having an animal in your apartment that you just, or house that you start just ignoring because you don't like the animal. You think it's ugly or it's ill-behaved, or you do not want to have an animal, but still it's there and it will cause havoc and cause a lot of trouble. So the longer you not deal with it, the more trouble it will cause. And this trouble in the psyche he described as neurosis, or having a complex. So it becomes automatic. It pushes against consciousness. It influences their daily lives. He saw, for example, people having accidents and are prone to accidents that he says they're not really in alignment. There's trouble. There's trouble in their personal unconscious. There is trouble in the area they don't want to go, but they should go. So this idea of the talking therapy, of the talking cure of psychoanalysis, of Freud and also Jung, is really then to talk about these things and to integrate them and to basically confess and bring them out to the light. This can have an incredibly relieving effect on the patient. But there's another way. And this is when something comes from the unconscious. And I have a quote for that also. One should not underestimate the terrible shock that patients suffer when they feel overwhelmed by intrusive alien content that they are unable to integrate. The mere fact of having such ideas isolates them from their fellow human beings and throws them into an irresistible panic that often marks the onset of a manifest psychosis. On the other hand, if they encounter appropriate behavior from their doctor, they do not panic because they are still understood by a human being, and they are spared the terrible shock of total isolation. The main difference between Freud and Jung is, for Freud, it stops with the personal. It stops with the personal unconscious because everything comes basically through consciousness. Everything that you have in your unconscious was conscious before, and it's just that society said this is wrong, this is not correct, we should not do this. But Jung said no, it can be completely different. There can be things in your unconscious that you're not even aware of. They never were in your consciousness. It's just that like this deep feeling or idea or vision or dream suddenly comes up out of nowhere. It's not connected to really anything directly to you. It comes from the collective part, the collective unconscious, where our human nature is like the collected wisdom and experience of human being that came ingrained into our psyche, in our human nature, in our DNA, basically, that certain things are just already there. Do not come as a blank slate. We are already human beings, but we are unconscious. So these things, they have to come out with time. Our personality has to be explored. But there's a lot of things that have nothing to do with that. They're very impersonal. This is where he says that art comes from, and culture. These ideas that connect a lot of people because it's in all their collective unconscious. Like deep down, you have the same source and you have different people that are connected to that. But this is also the reason why art and culture is so engrossing, because it's touching something very deep in us. It satisfies a deep psychological need that we just have to fulfill, but we're not necessarily aware of. So this is what culture is for, to point this out. That's, oh, take care of you in this way to satisfy your psychological needs. Of course, back then, psychology was not known. It was just, stuff works. People are happy or have a meaningful experience when they do something, or they have the bad experience when they do something else, right? This idea also of Greek theater that you have catharsis as the main component there, like an emotional flushing and release through watching and experiencing drama, which is different than when you, for example, read a newspaper, right? Or are in gossip or on the market buying something, right? It's a different experience because it touches something very deep. But at the same time, he's saying, oh, in this collective unconscious, a lot of stuff is alien to the person. It's strange, it's foreign. Ideas can come from there. And he saw there really the source for psychosis or schizophrenia, that things come up that are like very heavy food. You consume something that you cannot really process in your stomach. And what the body normally tries to do is to get rid of it, to let's puke it out. But if it's already in a psyche, you cannot really get rid of it. So this is what he saw with his patients, that they have these intrusions from the collective unconscious with this very strange idea, half formed and very ancient and hard to understand and unrelated to the patient. That makes it also very difficult. And he told the story of a patient he had who also thought he was going crazy because he said, I'm dreaming of this huge wheel of fire in the sky, and it looks like this, and it looks like this, and so on. He said, I'm going completely crazy. Why am I having these ideas? I have to be crazy, otherwise I would not have these ideas. Jung grabbed in his bookshelf and gave him a book and said, here, look into this. This is 400 years old. This is not from you. You not made it up. This is like something that other people saw before. In this book, it was an alchemical treaty. There was exactly this fiery ring in the sky and everything. And the patient was relieved, because this is also what's in the quote. When you are confronted by these strange things and you think, oh, nobody can understand me. I'm the very first person to have this idea and this experience. I'm removed from humanity as a human being. Nobody can understand me. This is a part where people start to isolate and where they really go crazy, because they're not really checking anymore with their surroundings. They're then isolated and more fall into their fantasies. There's no connection anymore to the outside world. And I have a new quote for that. The possession of a secret cuts a person off from his fellow human beings, since it is of the utmost importance for the economy of the libido that his rapport with the environment should be as complete and as unimpeded as possible. The possession of subjectively important secrets usually has a very disturbing effect. It is therefore especially beneficial for the neurotic if he can at least disburden himself of his secrets during treatment. And another one. Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself, or from holding certain views which others find inadmissible. And this is really where he saw the value of the therapist in this analytical psychology school that he built up and proposed, to be there for the patient and accept it when they say, I have a big black snake in my stomach and it tries to bite me, to go with that, not really necessary to confirm it, but to listen to it and take it seriously. Because this is what he saw very often, that the patients they were afraid that they were outside of humanity now, that they're disconnected, they're having experiences that no other human had before. To at least have someone else to share this with them brings back normalcy. In the quote, there was this idea of libido. For Jung, the psyche runs on a kind of energy or current or currency, we could even say, like an economy, that makes things happen, that makes things appear. Like when you have money, you can make a house appear, you can make a factory appear, you can also make like a factory disappear, and you can make a lot of things happen with money. It's a different form. You can buy something, you can have an experience. And libido is the same. It makes things happen in the psyche. So same as when you have no money in economy, there's nothing happening, nothing being produced. People are not doing necessarily anything. Same when you have no libido, things are not happening. And he says, we in our consciousness, we are structured there in consciousness to really direct this libido into things that are good, that we actively do things that need an expression. For example, partnership. We have this energy and drive to find a partner, and it should manifest in a partner. Otherwise, we suffer for it. And we're very sad and depressed because we really want to have someone who we want to have our life with. And so libido always needs these different ways of expressing itself dependent on the need. But it's there. It's like the currency to make things happen. And being impeded means that it cannot go where it should go. It means when people have the secret and they have it inside of them, the libido stays trapped and it stays inside. But it should go outside. It should manifest. It should be used then to connect to people. Notice that, for example, a lot of with artists that he had as patients, he said they need to create. They need to make art. If they do not do it, they get obtrusive thoughts and bad ideas and are completely unable to do anything because they have all this energy and it can't get out. It's like you have a car and you have your handbrake on, but you press the gas pedal. You create a lot of friction, a lot of energy, but you're going nowhere, and it's bad for the car. Same as it's bad for the psyche when the energy cannot go where it should go. So here he thought the therapist plays an important role to listen to the burden, that the patient is externalizing it, that it's not inside in the personal unconscious, but can come outside and be reflected then at sunlight. Because it's the thing, when you have it just ruminating in the back of your mind, it's not completely formed. You're not really also can reflect on the same way. Externalizing is an incredibly good tool. And Jung said sometimes drawing is even a good way to externalize it, or sculpting, or dancing, or writing anything, to get the libido out and to see that then something external. It's then not in your mind anymore. It's also outside, and it can be then treated differently. And I have a new quote for that. Yes, when you give yourself to the imagination, you are in effect lost to the world. Soon you can no longer explain yourself, and then the way to the lunatic asylum is clear. That is why, when the collective unconscious is near, one must learn some form of expression so as to create a bridge to reality. Otherwise, there's nothing to hold to, and the individual is a prey to the forces released. When people are lost in the collective and you can provide a form in which they can cast their ideas, they can come over into sanity again. It's really this idea to saying, okay, you have this energy, you have this libido, and it has to go somewhere, it has to manifest it. Next quote. Lunatics go furthest back to a strange psychological state where they cannot understand their ideas, nor are they able to make them understood by others. Sometimes, if it is as any way possible for a supposedly insane man to get his ideas understood, he can get well from the very strangest aberrations. And this is why Jung says it's so important to talk to people that had a similar experience as you. And he really demanded this from his therapist that he trained. He said, you yourself need to have gone through therapy. And also you as a guide through the psyche cannot go farther or bring a patient farther than you have gone yourself. It has to be authentic. And only that way you can understand it and accept it, what the patient is going through. So this idea comes up with, okay, I have something that's troubling me and I'm talking about it. This is an idea of confession. This is basically an old idea. This is a staple of the Catholic Church. And Jung noticed that about his patients back then, over 100 years ago. He said he would not get so often Catholic patients, except with Catholics that are actually not Catholics anymore. And he said there's just some like rituals or traditions that help people with their psyche. This is what I meant with the cultural aspect. He said the confession is there to help people work through these problems and talk and make them understood and disburn them from that. He said he would have way more Protestants as patients, as in the Protestant church, confession is not so important. And he said, not to go too much into these different religious ideas, but he said the burden today is much bigger because humans, especially modern humans, are removed from these old structures and these old habits and traditions that had also fulfilled a psychological need. They say like, oh no, I can take care of myself. Like this is now the psyche coming up and people not really knowing what to do. Like it's not that 2000 years ago when the Catholic Church started that they knew that they would relieve people of psychological stress. It's just like, okay, they thought it's a smart idea to do and the idea survived and proved useful. And it is this stuff that is slowly removing, but it's coming then back up again, right? You cannot get really rid of it. People have to confess and disburn themselves through talking. This is how the talking cure was formed. And this is really why Jung said, okay, the modern mind is psychological and the modern understanding is psychological. So we're rediscovering a lot of things in a different context and really with an understanding about them, why they're useful, because we want to understand today why. But all this until now sounded a little bit negative in regards to secrets. Jung had one very, let's say, not positive view, but like an understanding view why people would have secrets. And this has to do with individuation. And I have a quote for that. There's no better means of intensifying the treasured feeling of individuality than the possession of a secret which the individual is pledged to guard. The very begging of societal structures reveal the crafting for secret organizations. When no valid secret really exists, mysteries are invented or contrived to which privileged initiates are admitted. Jung talks a lot about individuation. You can find it actually in every topic that he talks about. And this is an idea of that we develop as human beings, that we have a psychological development, and with time we should start becoming more ourselves. Similar as when you have a small child, like children are not so different from each other when they're very small. But at a certain time, they start to develop preferences, or more preferences are discovered, and they have then a personality. And the older people get, the more they have their individual lives. Like comparing people when they're 30, it's already incredibly hard because everybody had their individual journey. They have different preferences. They already know a lot. They've done different things. They have different plans. And Jung said this drive to become individual is innate in us. So it's like also a psychological need. And this he calls differentiation. That means separating. Same as a child at a certain point needs to separate from the parents and go out into the world and explore the world. People also need to be able to separate, okay, is it these beliefs, do I only have them because I'm in a group? Is it my friend group? Is this my work? Is it the cult I'm in? Or is it really my beliefs? Is this what I want to do? So people want to separate and they want to differentiate. And he said secrets are a way of doing that. Like this, when children start to have secrets. And also as you grow up, you think more like, okay, yeah, maybe I should not tell everything that I do on a Friday night to my parents. That this is already a source of individuality. It's like the first step. It's not really true individuality, but it already separates one from other people. And that helps us to become and acting in a more individual way. And it was in the quote, it's even such a need just to invent secrets, just to have that, to draw borders between groups and other people, but also myself and other people. And I have another quote for that. The secret society is in an intermediate stage on the way to individuation. The individual is still relying on a collective organization to effect its differentiation for him. That is, he has not yet recognized that it is really the individual's task to differentiate himself from all the others and stand on his own feet. All collective identities, such as membership in organizations, support, isms, and so on, interfere with the fulfillment of his task. So it's a stepping stone. So while it's a necessary and understandable stepping stone, it's like, this is not where you should stay. Being in a cult or secret organization, it's also not a good long-term strategy and idea. Because in the end, life is individual, and that's what he talked about, that people should live this symbolic life, the things that it's fitting to them. This is incredibly hard to find out and takes its whole life, but this should be the goal. But of course, there's these intermediate steps and stepping stones. But of course, what's hindering and blocking people is when they have stuff in their unconscious that they cannot unburden themselves from. And this is to bring this report in, to really take this weight off their shoulders that they're carrying around. And there he saw the value of therapy and talking. And he said it's not necessarily only therapists who can do that, but he said there's a lot of lay people who have absolutely no psychological background, but still they do really good therapy because this is what works. People like to do what works. Also have the feeling what is the right thing to do. So same as in stories, that there's a secret introduced and we want to see it at the end of the story being resolved with all its consequences. He also sees it in the psyche. It has to come out. It cannot stay secret. The longer it is in the unconscious, the more it will boil and grow, and it will affect the person more and more to the point that they cannot live their life normally anymore. But if they can bring it out, if they can release it, then they return to normalcy. And it can be a secret that they chose to repress, or it can be something that they can do nothing for. It comes from the collective unconscious. It's alien. It cannot really be processed. But still there is a way to get rid of that. And this would conclude my presentation for this very interesting topic with some really amazing quotes. And I want to thank you very much for your attention. And I hope you learned something. And yeah, I'm very curious about the discussion part for today. So thank you. This was this event's topic. Thanks for tuning in. During an event, a discussion part follows after the presentation where all attendees discuss the just presented topic or other Jungian concepts. If you also want to join, find the group on meetup.com. The name of the group is CG Jung Helpdesk. Also make sure to subscribe to the podcast on the platform of your choice. See you next time.